In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Wake up, America. I think I got something to say to you. I say this every week. I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America too. Office Hours with Dr. A is not a safe space, so enter at your own risk. You will be exposed to the truth, and I will endure the consequences. Again, rest assured, I will not try to put my brain into your head. I will, however, motivate you to think and to use the analytical part of your brain that very few people want to use because it requires actual effort, it requires actual work.
You've reached the office of Dr. Randy Arrington. Please have a seat, and the doctor will be with you in just a moment.
Good afternoon to all the listeners out there. This is Dr. A, and we are in Office Hours. I got to warn everybody today because on the line with me is Lou Esposito, my producer, my sidekick, and of course, you know, I gave her the honorary tactical call sign of Wench, but I got to warn the listeners out there because she has gone on record and sort of threatened me today with this show. She has told me that she is going to throw me some grease balls, some spitballs.
Field Negro knuckleballs.
To see how I handle it, and I just want you out there to know that Dr. A is in the intellectual batter's box, and when she throws those softballs and those grapes and those grapefruits at me, I'm going to hit them out of the park. It's a gone, and you can tell that one goodbye, to quote John Fogerty in his song.
Yeah, we'll see.
Are you there, Lou?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see how softball they are when we get there.
Okie dokie. All right, well, you know, today's show, we are going through a nomination process right now, the primaries and the caucuses, and it's been pretty hectic out there on the campaign trail. A lot of fun. We've discussed this a little bit in several other shows. JD and Stacey, they talk about this every now and then on their shows. What we're going to talk about today is something that I call the Chicago Way. Do you have any idea what that might be about, Lou, Wench?
It's got to be about dirty politics.
Dirty politics. And, you know, I don't know if they invented dirty politics in Chicago, but it certainly
I think they invented it in New York.
It was certainly perfected there, you know, on the Ryan Expressway and all that stuff there in Michigan Avenue. So we're going to talk about the Chicago Way. Now, let's start. If you're ready, are you ready, Lou? You got all your intellectual softballs ready to throw at me?
Dude, you stop calling them softballs. We'll see when we get there. But
oh, okay.
Yeah,
oh, my goodness.
I'm ready.
I may have to call JD or Miss Stacy, that Cornell chick on the other line, and get some help on this. But that one show, call a friend? I may have to call a friend. Okay, so those of you that are listening out there to talk radio, popular host out there, as you know, from the conservative realm is Rush Limbaugh. And during a recent broadcast on his program, Rush argued that ISIS, which our Islamo-communists in the White House calls ISIL, but he said that ISIS is not Barack Hussein Obama's number one enemy. He argued that Obama's primary antagonist today in the United States of America is the Republican Party, the GOP, the grand old party, is the number one nemesis for Barack Obama. Well, folks, you really need to trust Dr. A on this one subject. Mr. Limbaugh is wrong. He couldn't be further from the truth on this one. President Obama's principal nemesis in America today are true, conservative Americans, those patriots who have the courage, the intestinal fortitude, if you will, to speak the truth and then endure those inevitable consequences that will come their way for speaking the truth, having the courage to speak the truth in a time of universal deception that we seem to be living in right now, especially emanating from the Mordor on the Potomac and those Beltway bandits. It's nonstop deception. These folks that I just mentioned, the true conservative Americans, they are the ones that Barack Obama in the past has rudely chastised as, what do? He said they cling to their guns and their Bibles and their Constitution. All of these good men and women, by the way, when I say men, for you people out there listening, I mean human. I don't want to, deny women and their role that they play in our nation.
Can I just say for the record that you are in no way, shape, or form a sexist? I know you very well. I've been working with you for quite some time, and please, if anybody's thinking that, just stop thinking it right now. Dr. Arrington is not a sexist.
I'm not a chauvinist pig. If I was, the Islamists would be really upset with me because they don't like pigs, right?
Well, I've heard you talk about Leah Gabriel, and you say as much wonderful things about her and her her naval aviator career as any other naval aviator that you've ever worked with or known. So,
well, I'm a fan of Leah. She's was an F-18 pilot in the Navy, flew off aircraft carriers, then transitioned from that to being a talent at Fox News. I believe she's on the Shepard Smith show, and I appeared on that show a couple of times to talk about things. So I'm a fan of hers. Yep. You got to realize when I was in the Navy actively flying, there were no women that were flying, and they slowly started getting working them into the Navy because it was a political correctness issue with some of the people in Washington, D.C., specifically Pat Schroeder on the House Armed Services Committee, Pat Schroeder out of Denver, Colorado.
She was one of the first, wasn't she? Not to derail the conversation, but she was one of the first female naval aviators. Maybe not the first. But
no, Tara Holdgreen. Tara Holdgreen was the first female naval aviator. She was forced onto the Navy. Bless her heart. She's dead now. She crashed while attempting to land on an aircraft carrier because she did not have the requisite amount of leg strength in her right thigh to overcome an asymmetrical thrust situation in a Tomcat. And
you're getting so technical.
Well, she did the wrong thing with her throttles as well. She lost one engine. She went to zone 5. She was as much power as she can get, which turned the airplane upside down. She should have pulled the power back and pushed that right rudder in and recovered the airplane. She didn't do that. And so I think that, bless her heart, I think she shouldn't have been there. In the beginning, you girls may not like this, but in the beginning, they were forced on the Navy, and they were nothing but a mess in a dress. But now, I've talked to several of my senior squadron mates, and these female aviators are shit hot. And that's a naval aviator term for they are outstanding. And that really makes me feel good because I want them to be outstanding. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't care what color you are. I don't care. If you can go to the training and you can fulfill all those boxes, those checks in the box of merit, well, my goodness, you belong there, and you get those much coveted wings of gold. And I'd pin them on you myself. So I'm not sexist in that regard anymore. I want the people that are qualified to be in the positions they're qualified to be in. I just responded to somebody on Twitter this morning, some Twitter troll that was attacking me, thanks to you and Miss Stacy. I've never had this happen to me in my life before, but I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you deserve to be there, you deserve to be there, and that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And my official answer is, if they can pass the test, they can meet the physical requirements. Why not?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen. You've seen some of the articles out there, these firefighters that are females that don't qualify, but they give them, the position anyway. That's wrong. If you can't do what is required to be done, then you shouldn't be there. What I was responding to this morning on Twitter was I told people, you got to trust Dr. Ray on this. 80% of the people in the federal government are incompetent to do the job they're hired to do. They just had that woman, she was one of the deputies at DHS, and a couple of those congressmen, senators, and the members of the House were asking her questions. She didn't have the answers. She had no idea, and it was her job to know that. She's one of the ones that's incompetent. The federal government seems to, if you go back to some of those Dirty Harry movies with Clint Eastwood, the federal government seems to hire people to be stylish or hip or out of residual guilt or to push forward a talking point, an ideology.
And that's no way to run a military.
80% are incompetent.
Yeah, and that's no way to run a military.
That's the Pareto principle.
Right.
Luckily, all you have to have is 20% competency for any group to be successful, and that's what happens. Yeah. So the Pareto principle is alive and well in the federal government because they want to be stylish, as Clint Eastwood would say.
And I just totally derailed our topic for today. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. We'll get back to these good men and women. And when I say men, I mean men and women. The good men and women that these good men and women we just talked about are Mr. Obama's most prominent adversaries. Why? Again, to reiterate, because they will boldly fight to preserve our individual freedom, our time-honored Christian values, our founding documents, and the traditional American way of life and those principles and morals associated with that. And they will go into battle to safeguard this nation despite any contrary or sabotaging actions by the so-called political elites or any political figure. True American patriots are a clear and present threat because, once properly motivated, they have the capacity to force any corrupt politician to his knees and toss him or her into the dustbin of history. Those of you that are fond of poetry will like this, as Sir Walter Scott said in his famous poem. It's called Breathes There the Man. He said this about this type of wretched statesman. The wretch, concentrated all in self, living shall forfeit fair renown, and doubly dying shall go down to the vile dust from whence he sprung, unwept, unhonored, and unsung. Can you think of any politicians that might apply to them, Lou?
Which one? The unsung hero?
All of them. All the things I just said.
Yeah, I can think of a few.
You live in North Carolina. I always tease you live in South Carolina. What's the difference? Lindsey Graham, to me, is unwept, unhonored, and unsung. He's a vile politician. He might be a nice guy in life.
Yeah, and just north of him is the antithesis of that, Mark Meadows, who I always like to plug on the show because he is a fabulous, fabulous representative for North Carolina.
Here's a senator that you can't stand, and neither can Jared Day. You might have something to say about this guy. And he's my brother, naval aviator. I've flown with the man. We flew the same airplanes in the Navy. He's older than me. But John McCain from Arizona.
I don't like John McCain because he broke my mother's heart when he sealed those records because she had a cousin that was like a big brother that was MIA in Korea.
Yeah. He didn't do much for the Vietnam vets either. Those honorable men and women that were involved in that conflict on behalf of the United States. They went into harm's way. We asked them to go into harm's way, and they did it. And then when they came back, they weren't received very well. They were spit on when they came in through the terminal at the airport, and had people like John McCain sealing the records and disavowing that any POWs still existed. I know for a fact that's bull. That's not true. So they've got POWs over there that are dying now as basically slaves of that communist regime in Saigon, in Hanoi. Ho Chi Minh City, whatever they call it now. Let's get back to this. Why is speaking the truth such revolutionary behavior? Again, in a time where massive deception seems to be the standard practice for politicians and for the media, for that matter, inside the Beltway. Well, here's why. Because truth eventually exposes all crimes, corruption, treason, fraud, lies, and deception to public scrutiny, to the light of day, no matter who has perpetrated them. As Lou's favorite philosopher John Locke taught us, citizens are indeed the true reservoir of power in any polity, in any political society. Unfortunately, in contemporary America, many Republicans in the grand old party are collaborating with Barack Obama and the Democratic Party due to bribery and blackmail. That's why both political parties, Lou, and Stacey, if you're listening out there, that's why both political parties are deathly afraid of putting a Donald Trump into the White House, or even a Ted Cruz into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mm-hmm. And it's why there were what, hundreds or thousands of FBI files on opponents found in the basement of the White House when the Clintons left.
You think that what happened when Mr. and Mrs. Clinton left the White House, all the corruption that went on as they were preparing to leave, and what they were destroying and burning and taking the W's out of all the typewriter keyboards, you think that was ugly? You just wait. It's going to take this guy, this knucklehead in the White House, and his band of miscreants, probably 4, 5, 6 months at the end of his term, his second term, to get rid of all the incriminating evidence that exists. And you know what? They won't be able to get rid of it all. And eventually the truth's going to come out about this guy, and it's going to be vile and ugly.
Right.
Donald Trump or Ted Cruz as our chief executive means that all of the traitors on both sides of the aisle in Washington, D.C., both sides of the political continuum, will be exposed, indicted, prosecuted, ultimately convicted, and put in prison for their heinous crimes against the United States of America. Those of you that listen to us talk radio out there know this name, William J. Bennett. I've talked to him a few times myself. He is a former Secretary of Education. It was in the Reagan administration when the Democrats forced Ronald Reagan to create the educational hierarchy there, bureaucracy. He was the first Secretary of Education in Ronnie's administration. And he is hosting his own radio show. I think it's called Bill Bennett's Morning in America. For over 3 decades, 30-some years, Bill Bennett has proven himself, at least to me, to be a highly humble, highly respected voice of conservative reason on political, cultural, and educational public policy in America. In one of his recent shows, and he posted this online as well, Bill Bennett suggested that presidential candidate Donald Trump would be assassinated. Did you hear what I said, listeners? Bill Bennett suggested that Donald Trump would be assassinated. Here's what he wrote. I'm quoting Bill Bennett. "They will kill him before they let him be president." It could be a Republican. It could be a Democrat that instigates the shutting up of Trump. Don't be surprised if Mr. Trump has an accident. Some people are getting very nervous inside the Beltway. Barack
and that's
Obama.
Horrible. That's horrible. You know my history, and we talked about as we were coming on the show, and I hate it when people force me to do this, but actually defending Jimmy Carter as a man, not as a politician, on Twitter this week because of some pretty vile things that people were saying about them. So when someone talks about it, regardless, I don't agree with them. I can't. I think he's entertaining as an entertainer, and I've always liked him for that.
Who's this, Jimmy Carter or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
Oh, okay.
But I don't like him as a politician, and I don't agree with the fact that he's really conservative. Or anybody can change. Maybe he's changed his ideals, but he still supports eminent domain. And for someone whose favorite philosopher is Locke, that's a real problem for me. But when you start talking about hurting someone who's a father, a grandfather, a husband, that's wrong. I don't care why you're doing it, especially for politics.
You remember this from your days there at Meredith, John Locke's famous mantra, and he and Montesquieu were the ones that influenced our founding fathers, Madison, to write the Constitution, all that stuff. Right. Consent to the governed, which was highly revolutionary in a time when the person that was named king or queen Prince was named that because they were founded by a deity. God said this guy is going to be the king or queen, and that's ridiculous. And so he said, no, it should be whoever rules us. It should be a consent of the governed, which was revolutionary. He also said life, liberty, and property. We changed that. Jefferson changed that to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But property is highly important in a civil society. You've got something. You've got a stake in the society, something that you will protect and defend. Not just you own your body, so that's property, and your family, your possessions as well. Whether that be your car, your .45 caliber, weapon. Or that little piece of property that you put your potatoes on and you farm, or you whatever, you grow horses. That's very important in society, and people forget that. They don't understand that. I've got friends of mine that think that if you don't own something, you shouldn't be allowed to vote, because all you're doing is voting yourself a piece of the national treasury. You don't have a stake in the nation, really. You're just a tick, on the hide of society. I'm sorry if that offends you, but the parasite on the hide of society, sucking the blood. Does that sound okay?
You warned us all appropriately that this is no safe space.
Okay, all right. Well, I would be interesting for me to find out. I told you what I think about Mr. Trump. I told you that I think eventually will not get the nomination. He could, but eventually, in my humble opinion, probably not. But that his presence on the campaign trail is of value to everybody in the United States, because we're trying to vet somebody that can be the president of the United States and do a damn good job for us. He makes everybody on both sides of the political spectrum answer questions about topics and issues they'd rather not talk about, or just give vague answers to, softball answers to, that they don't want to talk about. He makes them answer. And the more he gets uproarious and outrageous, the more the media cover him. He's getting free PR, which, didn't you used to work for the blood bank? You know about PR, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So he's getting free PR, free public. It'd be interesting for me to find out what you would do, and Miss Stacey, the Cornell chick, what she would do if Trump gets the nomination and it's Trump versus Mrs. Clinton. I'm wondering if you'll stay home like some of the other people are threatening to do, or if you would go and vote because you think, even though you don't like Trump, he would be a better president than Mrs. Clinton.
I am not going to speak
true, folks.
I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I don't sit home on election day, especially when I am as happy to vote against someone as I am to vote for someone. It would not be the first time that I gritted my teeth and voted.
Well,
but if he were to win the nomination, I would weigh that, and I certainly don't want a Mrs. Clinton or Bernie Sanders in office. So,
do you think in the future we could do a show together, during office hours, Dr. Ray, on that article I wrote about Mrs. Clinton?
Let's do. The pathological liar one? Yeah, let's do.
A pathological liar, that she is. And, what difference at this point does it make? Is she a sociopath or a pathological liar? What difference at this point does it make? And she's actually both. I want to do a show on that and let people understand what she actually is.
Right.
When we getting back here, do we need to take a break, or what do you need to do?
Yeah, we can take a break. We can take a break real quick, and
right.
You rest your voice, and we will be right back.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of conservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe and no one is spared. Not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey?
Today.
Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get set again.
Welcome back to Office Hours. Dr. A, where'd you leave off?
I thought you were going to play some clips from that brand new hot music video by country singer Jeff Weber called Kerosene Cowboy, but maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we'll have him on and we'll talk to him about the making of that.
I was going to surprise you with that next week, doggone it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I getting back to what we're talking about, the Chicago way, I mentioned don't be surprised, and this comes from Bill Bennett, don't be surprised if Trump has, and I'll call this a scripted accident. Don't be surprised if he has an accident. Some people are getting very nervous. To name a few, Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett, one of my favorite people, Eric Holder, Mrs. Clinton, John Corzine, just to name a few people that are getting very nervous. Now, what Mr. Bennett is referring to in his blog and what he's talking about his radio show is the scandalous, covert alliance between government officials of both stripes, people, and big business tycoons, whether they be foreign or domestic. The unholy nature of this bipartisan merger is designed to clandestinely steal money from you and me, from the American taxpayer, at an unprecedented rate to ensure the politicians own power, to ensure the politicians own enrichment. And naturally, this dishonest dynamic is covered up and concealed from those prying eyes of John Q. Public and Mrs. John Q. Public by the various mainstream outlets of media. The media cover-up represents a crucial component of this overall conspiracy, in my humble opinion. All totalitarians, if you look at history, political science, all totalitarians seek first to control, manipulate, and propagandize information. Because basically, most of us aren't very smart. And if we hear something and we hear it over and over and over, suddenly in our minds it might become the truth. Again, I used to teach my students at UCLA, Tulane, wherever I taught, I'm not going to lie to you. I might tease you a little bit to see if you understand what I'm doing, and then have you, teach you to have the courage to come out and challenge me. So I say, don't believe anything first glance. For anything you hear, read, or it comes out of this mouth right here from your professor, Dr. Arrington. Find out, do the research, do the legwork, and find out if what I'm telling you is the truth or not. And then if I am not telling you the truth, come back at me with good intellectual banter. That's what I always wanted them to do. That's what the college experience is supposed to be about, is teaching them to engage in rational thought, analytical thought process, not this crap that's going on right now with the cultural Marxists leading Black Lives Matter and all these other idiots on campus. That's what's happening. We're going to have a series on cultural Marxism, and I'll discuss that. That's what's going on right now. They are unwitting, and some of them are witting, unwitting accomplices to treason. And sometimes they don't even know it.
Right, yeah. Well, don't know it or don't care or just can't see it.
Just give me my BMW. Where's my BMW?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So, again, all totalitarians seek to control, manipulate, and do propaganda as information. As Ted Cruz has stated on several occasions, in fact, I stood right next to Ted Cruz up at that Red State gathering up there in Atlanta. As he said on numerous occasions, the Washington cartel is alive and well. For instance, listen closely. And when you listen to these people or anybody that makes proclamations, even me, what is the political context within which they are saying this statement, the historical context? For instance, listen closely to Harry Reid, Mitch McConnell. It used to be John Boehner, now it's Ryan, the Speaker of the House, Ryan, or Nancy Pelosi, or Mrs. Clinton or Bernie Sanders or Barack Hussein Obama, any of them, when they make their, how should I put this, public proclamations, again, fully understand the historical or political context for their speeches. They use skillfully orchestrated words, catchphrases that appear to contradict supposed political rivals merely to appease their constituents, whoever they view as their constituency. But in the final analysis, the message is always the same. Protect one another's power in the political wrestling match that is gloriously displayed for the global viewing audience. Last week we talked about the political spectacle, the presidential spectacle, and I was warned offline by my producer, Miss Wench, don't go back, just tell people to listen to that podcast and explain it. She threatened me with violence if I explained it, so
refer to the previous podcast.
Go figure it out, yeah. In this highly unethical relationship, all of the so-called elite players procure millions, in fact, it might even be billions of dollars in this secret scheme. It is basically an illicit team of politicians, Wall Street capitalists, knucklehead bankers, media moguls that are engaged in massive corruption while continuously protecting one another. If you want to read a real good book, it's called The Power Elite. It was written back in 1956. C. Wright Mills wrote the book, and in that book he documented this nefarious activity as potentially damaging, as potentially destabilizing, a destabilizing aspect of our political system back in 1956. It still rings true today. In that book, he talks about all of these, again, I call them so-called elites, know each other intimately. You don't like when I use that word, do you? Intimately.
I don't mind when you use that word. Okay, well, why would I mind?
You know what I mean. Well, when I use intimately and Bill Clinton the same, you don't like that, and I know that. So I'm learning. See, she's handling me, folks. So that's okay. So all of these elitists know each other intimately. They attended the same schools. Some of them attended Cornell. Play golf at the same country clubs. They sit on each other's boards of directors. They dine at the same swanky restaurants in Washington, D.C., like the old Ebbett Grill, the Capitol Grill, places like that. They have their children intermarry to perpetuate the longevity of their power. As Bill Bennett argued, it's a heck of a filthy relationship. I'm quoting Bill Bennett. It's a heck of a filthy relationship that makes everyone filthy rich. Everyone except the American people. What happens to us? We get ripped off. We are the patsies. But in this current campaign for presidential nomination, phony politicians, crony capitalists, and media moguls appear to be running slightly terrified, a little scared. The daily, exaggerated response, and it gets worse each day, to the Donald from this corrupt cabal of elitists is a constant stream of trumped-up allegations. You like that, Donald Trump, trumped up? Trumped-up allegations and ridiculous rage that indicates they are all feeling highly threatened. Their lives, their cozy positions, their political power, their massive fortunes, and, if any of them care about this, their sacred honor, are now in dire jeopardy of unraveling. Mr. Trump doesn't need anybody to finance his run for the presidency. Donald Trump doesn't need Stacey, Miss Stacey, the Cornell chick, to help finance his run for the presidency. And all propaganda aside, members of that Washington cartel fully realize that Trump could actually win the GOP nomination. I told you that. I don't think he will, but he could. Let's see how it plays out. Do you want me to endorse a candidate, Lynch? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it if you ask me to. I won't do it.
Well, no, I'm not going to ask you to if you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it either.
Throwing you a softball.
Too early.
All right, you're right. It's too early. We haven't even gone to the caucus in Iowa. And all these polls, like I heard JD say this last week on the show, or maybe Stacey said, all the polls mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. There was the guy that won in Kentucky, the Republican that won the governorship there in Kentucky. Second time he ran. I think he ran first against Lindsey Graham and he lost, but he ran for the governorship of Kentucky. was down 5 points 1 week before they voted. He won by 18. I mean, so it's amazing.
Right.
Some of these pollsters, they are getting paid, bribed, blackmailed on the side to come up with these numbers because they know there are people out there that can be swayed by these supposed numbers. Well, I want to be on the side of a winner, so I'm going to vote. They said this guy's going to win, so I'm going to vote for him. Now, all propaganda aside, again, members of this Washington cartel realized that he could actually, this Mr. Trump, could actually win the nomination. He could eventually win the presidency. If he wins the presidency, becomes our chief executive, and moves from New York to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, he could upset their apple cart inside the sheltered confines of that D.C. protected bubble.
Yeah, but I disagree about him being an outsider. I don't think Donald Trump is an outsider. I think he's just been working working the inside from the other side for years, for decades even.
That would be called the inside-out game. I like that. That's a good analogy. Exactly right. Donald Trump is not just the obvious subject of a humorous monologue on late-night television. No matter how diligently the elites strive to make it appear to be that way on a daily basis. It's not an accident, Lou, that all of the elite players, again, so-called elite players, are now actively conspiring to terminate the New York real estate tycoon's presidential aspirations. I told you offline that you can look on the websites now or go buy a magazine, go to the magazine rack there, and you see pictures of Donald Trump looking like Hitler. You see, there was one magazine, I can't remember what it was, that had a little mantra there. It said, when Donald Trump came for the Muslims, I didn't do anything because I'm not a Muslim. When Donald Trump came for the illegal immigrants, I didn't do anything because I'm not an illegal immigrant. When Donald Trump came for me, who stood up for me? Nobody.
There's nobody left. But
when Donald Trump comes for Stacey Lennox, who's going to stand up for Stacey? Well,
I will. Yeah, we will.
And JD, yeah.
Right. But I think that's in some ways, I think it's an apt analogy, but I think that they just really overdid it with the way that they presented it. The interesting thing is that some of the mainstream media defends him, and others don't.
Well, members of both sides of the political continuum, what do? They mug for the cameras, and they talk a big game. Again, it's very similar to what we talked about last week, going back to that spectacle of the rigged wrestling match in the WWE, which I, equated to what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. But in the end, Lou, nothing will actually change inside the Beltway. One election cycle, the Democrats get to play the good guy character in this political wrestling match. The next election cycle, the Republicans assume the role of good guy. The overarching goal, Lou, and the outcome always remains the same. Protect their political power at all costs, using every available strategy and tactic. It's a highly fixed activity, just like the 1919 World Series when those dastardly Chicago White Sox, 8 men out, intentionally lost to the inferior baseball team, the Cincinnati Reds. Say it ain't so, Joe, but it is so, and it was so. The vast majority of our elected politicians are tied inextricably to big money contributors. And as Bill Bennett said in his blog, they are all owned by the lobbyists, the unions, the lawyers, gigantic environmental organizations, multinational corporations like big oil conglomerates and the big pharmaceutical companies. Or, as Bill Bennett said, they are owned lock, stock, and barrel by foreigners like the cultural Marxist George Soros owns Mr. Obama, or foreign governments own Mrs. Clinton due to their donations to her, what do they call that foundation, the Clinton Foundation? Yes. As I've taught on numerous occasions, establishment politicians are marionettes, and big money benefactors are the puppeteers pulling their strings. Now, despite what Miss Stacey Lennox thinks, Donald Trump is a true maverick. He is an atypical presidential candidate. He doesn't need anybody or anything but the support of the American electorate. What do you think about that? Come on, give it to me.
Well, I think that he doesn't need them necessarily, but if you look at who has donated, let's keep in mind that he is for universal health care, and if you look at through who's donated to his campaign so far, there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies on that list. There are a lot of healthcare companies on that list.
Strike one. All right, you ready for my next curveball?
Yeah.
Out on the campaign trail, Mr. Trump, he does this routinely. He can insult Barack Obama. I insult Barack Obama all the time. Not the man, but the policies. He can insult George Soros. Trump can insult the media, crooked union leaders, lawyers, politicians, and foreigners with what it seems like to be relative impunity. His constituents right now, at least, are the mass of disgruntled American citizens who sort of been cut out by the politicians and who will rush to the polls to support his candidacy in November 2016 should he be fortunate enough to win the GOP nomination. It's this feature alone, Lou, that means that Donald Trump is the most dangerous man to members of the D.C. political wrestling scam, those Beltway bandits. I think that Ted Cruz is also a very dangerous man to the Beltway bandits. What do you think?
I think he's way more dangerous to the Beltway bandits than Donald Trump is, but I also have a theory about Trump really setting up a victory for Ted Cruz, and I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Both of these guys could bring the Washington cartel tumbling down to their knees and expose their deception to the American public. Why do you suppose that nobody in Washington, why do you suppose nobody has had the courage to draft articles of impeachment against our current occupant in the White House? Or actually attempt to prevent Mr. Obama from implementing his various illegal and unconstitutional executive actions? Here's the answer, folks. Trust Dr. Ray on this one subject. The answer is the Chicago way of engaging in politics. Many of these politicians, many of these Republicans and Democrats are being bribed or blackmailed. Because of our unrestrained domestic spying program, the NSA knows everything about everybody, including our elected representatives. Many members of Congress, I hope you don't get shocked by this, Lou, many members of Congress are closet homosexuals or are engaging in extramarital sexual relations, have illegal alien housekeepers, or they're actively embezzling taxpayer dollars.
Oh my gosh, I'm wearing my shocked face.
Okay, well, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, is the man who greatly expanded and accelerated the NSA spying/surveillance program because, again, he wanted to operate using the Chicago way inside of the political realm in Washington, D.C. It's how he grew up. Denny Hastert, former Speaker of the House, a Republican, could quickly corroborate this claim I just made. Numerous government bureaucracies are, how should I put this, actively spying on every Republican political leader. Why? Because Barack Obama ordered them to do so.
Right.
They watch everything and everybody. It is part of the Chicago way of doing business in politics. It is not out of fear of being labeled a racist that the GOP fails to defund Obamacare. It is due to bribery and blackmail and the huge lobbyist salary that awaits every politician after electoral defeat or their retirement if they don't rock the boat. We interviewed former Congressman Bob Livingston, and he was a wonderful guest. I had some questions to answer that we posed to him that we disagree with.
Yeah.
And he's now running the Livingston Group, huge lobbyist organization in Washington and in Louisiana, making millions and millions of dollars lobbying these politicians. Now you have every right to do that. Every man and woman in the United States could go to Washington D.C., go to a meeting of the House of Representatives, and call their representative out to meet with them. You still have the right to do that. Did you know that?
Yeah, but it's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap. They want that money. Mm-hmm. It is, again, it's the Chicago way that was perfected by folks like Al Capone, the first Mayor Daley, among others.
Yep.
Win or lose, wench, they always win when they play the game.
That's
they
right.
are all the Wizard of Oz, distracting you and me and the rest of the American public with smoke and mirrors and pretty lights and flames, while imploring us to pay no attention to that man behind the curtain who is pulling the levers of wool over our myopic eyes. Where is Mr. Smith, the Honorable James Stewart's character in that movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Where is Mr. Smith when we need him most in D.C.? I think Ted Cruz might be a Mr. Smith. What do you think?
I think he's the closest thing to a Mr. Smith that we have, and I think he definitely has shown it over the past 6 months. He called Mitch McConnell to the carpet, and nobody has done that.
I know. Well, I have.
Well,
like
no one else in the
bit.
Senate. No one else in the Senate. Even Rand Paul, with all of the everything that he stood up against, and his hours and hours on the floor against the drone program and the NSA program, he still didn't call Mitch McConnell out for lies.
But Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are about as phony as you can get. I don't understand how people in Kentucky or South Carolina can vote for those people.
We have two
I don't
Republican
understand it.
senators.
They're fooled. They're easily fooled. They're stupid.
Right.
Jonathan Gruber said that.
And quite honestly, I think that we've got one Republican senator who might be in a little bit of trouble. I don't think he rises to the extent of Lindsey Graham, but he might be in a little bit of trouble for his support of some of the NSA.
Hey, J.D. and Stacey Lennox, where is Dorothy Gale and her band of innocent assistants who will melt the Wicked Witch of the West, that's Mrs. Clinton, then unmask and destroy all the little cowardly wizards in the land of Oz there, that is the Mordor on the Pacific?
I don't know, but if you want to rest your voice, it's time for another break.
Yeah, sure, I'll rest.
Let's do another quick break. We'll be right back. We might go a little bit over today, but there's nobody
that's
after
okay.
us, so that's cool. Okay.
That
we'll
is
be right
cool.
back.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
Wondering why you're up early with us on a Sunday morning making a cocktail? News lately got you drinking? Hung over from the mainstream media by Sunday? We are, and we got you covered.
We sure do. We got your hangover cure for those weekly news blues. So sit back, top off your mimosa, and add some Baileys to that coffee.
Take a match to your copy of the New York Times. Light, funny, and oh yeah, news with booze.
And a lot of laughter.
Welcome to Bloody Marys and Broadsheets.
Abolish the IRS. Take all 125,000 IRS agents and put them on our southern border.
That's us, that's right. Gotta love this American ride. Both ends of the ozone burning. Funny how the world keeps turning. Look, Mom, no hands. I love this American ride. Gotta love this American ride.
Little Ted Cruz for you there, since we were talking about him. Love
I
that
like
clip.
that.
I know.
Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, for that matter, maybe Mr. Smith and Dorothy Gale all rolled into one candidate because they don't play by any of the phony rules. Mr. Trump and Ted Cruz break up the nice, comfy relationship between the bought and paid for politicians, big government, the huge corporations, and the big media outlets. All the political rules of engagement are thrown out if either one of them moves into the White House, actually. Dr. A has been teaching, that's me. I love it. You love it when I go third person, right?
No, I actually don't. We're gonna if you ever run for office, we're definitely gonna work that out of your vocabulary before you do. But I don't. I will tell you that I'm not real fond of the Ted Cruz Donald Trump comparisons.
Okay, all right. Well,
and
they
I
might
mean,
end up
make
on
them. It's your right.
Ticket.
It's your right to make them, but I don't necessarily agree with them because on one side, Ted Cruz is the quintessential constitutionalist, and on the other side, you have Donald Trump, who I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I can disagree with the Supreme Court decision, and I have since they made it. Is very supportive of eminent domain, which not just limits but completely obliterates personal property rights, and that is not at all very Ted Cruz.
No, it's not. That would be Donald Trump, the businessman who wants to usurp that right. Well, it's not a right, but he wants to usurp that property for his own benefit. I agree with you totally.
Right.
I've been teaching that Donald Trump's presence again on the campaign forces the other people to actually answer questions.
And I agree with that.
This is what Bill Bennett said. Trump is questioning our relationship with Mexico. He's questioning why the border is wide open. Trump is questioning why no wall has been built on that border, although it's been a law for a long, long time. He's questioning if allowing millions of illegal aliens, unvetted, into America is in our best interests. He's questioning why so many illegal aliens commit violent crimes yet are not deported. And he's questioning why our trade deals with Mexico, Russia, and China are so hideous. Citizens need answers to hard questions like this. Why is it that American workers always seem to get the shaft in our economy? Why has nobody been charged with fraud for selling Obamacare by blatantly lying to the American people? Why has the IRS conspiracy been swept under the rug? Why has Mrs. Clinton not been indicted for her blatant fraud in the Benghazi terrorist attack on our consulate? All members of the Washington cartel need to stop Donald Trump, and for that matter, Mr. Cruz, because these things could spiral out of control on them. They would lose control of the puppets, the marionettes. Mr. Trump in the White House would be a nightmare, not the kind of nightmare that makes Stacey Lennox experience insomnia. Trump could rouse the sleeping giant that is the true conservative American patriot. No matter what you actually deem and judge his politics to be, whether you think he's faking to be a conservative or not, he could rouse the sleeping giant of those true conservative American patriots. I think he's actually done that, as has Mr. Trump. And I like Rand Paul, too. He's done that to a certain extent. Numerous high-ranking politicians, people, could end up in prison. And that is precisely why Donald Trump must be stopped in his tracks. That's why, as Bill Bennett said, the dogs of hell will be eventually unleashed on Donald Trump. It will become open season on the Donald. Now, here is my final analysis. The GOP establishment, the RNC, elected office holders, big cash donors, lobbyists, mainstream media, Wall Street financiers, the DNC, conservative traitors who have infiltrated into high-level positions within the Republican Party, they will perpetrate will not perpetrate a hard kill, an actual assassination on the mortal man Donald Trump. They will, however, conspire and carry out a soft kill, a character assassination of the political man and the current presidential frontrunner, Donald Trump.
So here's a question that I have for you. The mainstream media never agrees with or follows anything that the Republican Party wants them to do. Why do you think that they are on board with this go after Donald thing?
Do I think they'll be on board with the Donald?
Well, we were talking about the whole Fuhrer thing, the two images that you sent me earlier in the week about his presentation as the Fuhrer on the front page of two different publications.
Right. They're doing that for the character assassination. They're likening him to Hitler.
Right, exactly.
Really,
but why would the mainstream media, who never agrees with the Republican Party about anything, get behind the Republican Party in this effort?
It's a political wrestling match. They may not agree with the Republican Party as far as you can see, but behind those closed doors, it is the elites that get together. And they, just like C. Wright Mills said in The Power Elite, they get together and they put on a good front for you. You have a lot of closed-door meetings that are taking place in the White House, inside of those different buildings that the politicians work in, where they say, okay, you go out today and you play the bad guy, but here's what we're really going to do together. When they're conspiring together, Lou, and in the political WWE wrestling match in Washington, D.C., you go out and play the bad guy, I'll play the good guy. And next month it'll be my turn to reverse roles. They're all in cahoots together. They don't. Of course, most of the there is a liberal media bias, you know that, but they will support the people in the Republican Party when it's in their interests to do that. Gotcha. And the interest is follow the money. Follow the money. Remember in the Watergate hearing and all that stuff, everything when the investigation of Watergate, follow the money. Go find Deep Throat and follow the money is what he told those two guys in the Washington Post to do. And that's how you find out who's doing what, who's paying the bills, who's making the money. Right. I would tell people out there in the United States of America, by the way, I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America too. Keep right on clinging to your guns, people. Hold tight to your Bibles and revere our Constitution. In my humble opinion, Barack Hussein Obama enjoys two simultaneous distinctions in American history. He has committed the most impeachable crimes of any president in American history, yet he is simultaneously the least impeachable president ever in American history. The invisible primary is alive and well, but severely flawed. The current crop, Lou, of GOP establishment, and I'm talking about the people that are elected and also those lobbyists and also the people that are running the campaigns, the consultants, this current crop of GOP establishment, they couldn't win the presidency if it was handed to them on a silver platter made by the Benghazi Traders Company Incorporated.
Repeat that.
The current crop of GOP establishment, everybody's associated with that. This current crop of GOP establishment couldn't win the presidency if it was handed to them on a silver platter made by the Benghazi Traders Company Incorporated.
That's my favorite phrase you've ever come up with. I love it.
And they were handed a silver platter. They don't know what to do with it. Again, the invisible primary is alive and well. The top political consultants being relied upon by the GOP establishment to formulate their election strategies, guys like Karl Rove, they're not as politically savvy as they think, and they're touting themselves to be. But they're getting mega wealthy despite this blatant truth. The major political donors who are actually honest are being duped, Lou, into an ignorant bliss. I, Dr. A, can't think of a more potent recruitment tool for ISIS and all of radical Islam and jihad than having Barack Hussein Obama sitting in the White House or riding his girl bike or traipsing around a golf course wearing his cute little shorts or
don't
giving
forget his mom jeans. Don't forget the mom jeans.
His mom jeans. Yeah. Or giving his idiotic America-bashing global warming as the most heinous thing that mankind can ever face, teleprompter speeches. That is nothing but a recruitment tool for radical Islam and jihad. So as I always say, let freedom ring, God help us, and everybody out there have the guts, have the courage, the intestinal fortitude, people, to speak the truth. And then you'll have to endure those inevitable consequences because they will come to you for having the courage to speak the truth, Lou. And I know you do. JD does. Stacy does. Jared does. I'm honored to be associated with all of you people. I want you to know that.
Thank you. And I have endured some consequences for speaking the truth, but that's quite all right.
Yes, you have. I've seen that.
Quite all right. I know. That's quite all right with me. I don't mind it, and I think that I have fun on Sundays speaking the truth with you as well, even when I'm throwing you knuckleballs. And I'm so proud of you for getting out of this in just about on time. We only went over by about a minute.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I'm learning. I'm learning from the professionals, and you handle me and make sure that I do get done on time.
You're doing great.
Okay, so you want to talk about what we might be doing next week? And we got the show in Philadelphia, New Jersey that they're probably going to play what we just did for the K98 people.
This show will play on WNJC in Philadelphia on 1360 AM. They call it Super 1360, and on Tuesday at 5 p.m. We'll be back here Sunday at noon. Next Sunday on K98 Talk, and you can find me Thursday night, and I think you're going to join me on Thursday night again, correct?
Oh boy, that's what an honor that is. Thank you. I enjoy that.
8 p.m. on Thursday night. So we need to crank it up and get out of here. Say goodbye.
Okay. Well, damn the political correctness, full speed ahead. We are at war, people. Trust me on this one subject. And goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Have a great Sunday, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say. It's late September and I really
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.